As a researcher, demographics are changing, and we have to pay attention to how young adults are very different today than they have been in the past. They're getting married much later. This is true of young men and of young women, but they're getting married later. They're having children later. Sometimes they're not married when they have children. So obviously, the notion of family is changing. And listen, there are still millions of people in our culture that are following a very traditional path, getting married early, having children fairly early in their 20s. But there's no sort of normal path now for what it means to grow up, to be a young adult. And so for young women, what's happening is that they're going to school, they're getting educated, many of them, much more so actually than young men. They're much less likely to be addicted to screens and to video games. And so actually I think there's a good argument to make that they actually are better stewards of their time than young men. This is not categorically true, but it's generally true in the data that young men are more likely to sort of waste lots of hours using video games and other kinds of things. And so what's happening is this generation of women have more opportunities, more sets of opportunities in terms of their careers, in terms of the education they're going to get. They feel as though once they do get married, they may have already had a decade or more of work experience. And so it's not sufficient for us just to say, hey, get married to a great guy and then everything's going to work out okay for you. The demographics are destiny. And the fact that today's 20-somethings are different, then we as leaders have to help this next generation of leaders grow into the kinds of things that they're called to be in a new social setting, in a digital world, in a world where marriage may or may not happen for women as quickly as it did in the past, where the conventional knowledge of like, hey, just if they're going to leave church, they might come back to church when they get married and have kids. That may or may not apply to this generation. So I actually believe if you're a Christian leader, we have to stop using the excuse with this generation that let's not worry about them because they're going to come back to the church when they're married. That's just, the gospel doesn't give us an excuse to target particular demographic segments that are convenient for us. Today's young men, young women are facing a very different kind of cultural reality, and we have to respond as leaders to develop the next generation of leaders.